will change lives, because people will go, wow, there's something about you. And they want to lean in and want to know what it is. Well, it's them seeing themselves in me, in their innate wholeness, in just the commitment I'm having to live my life with an open heart and a connected soul, if I can, as often as I can. So the Global Wisdom Foundation is a living library of awakening people to the revelation of spoken wisdom from the luminaries, known and unknown in our world, set to music or images in a way that in 7, 5, 6 minutes drop people into a state of remembrance, into that state of wordlessness, into that state of awe that gets wisdom in a way that changes their lives, whether it's about understanding death, understanding birth, feeling courage, being awakened. It's all about that. But the other component of it is offering a tour of musical celebration.
Hi, my name is Zenka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is making the impossible possible. We are here today with a composer and producer named Gary Malkin. He is one of our cherished Holo Movement members. He was joining us last year in Ibiza at our WAVE conference, which we're doing again in Asheville this year. Laura Pena of She and the Universe interviewed Gary during this incredible time where he shares his work in the Wisdom of World Wellness. This is an organization that brings music to the forefront of emotional intelligence and more. His Emmy Award-winning compositions and songs have been played millions and millions of times over and have answered that special connection that we have where music and mindfulness and healing and emotional intelligence all come into one.
I grew up in a Russian Jewish suburban family where there was a lot of love, but it was a lot of dysfunction. There was a lot of penetrating each other's boundaries. There was a lot of harshness. There was a lot of, it was very hard for a sensitive boy like me. And so when I found a piano at a friend's house at a play date at 5 years old, or it found me, and I instantly could play harmony and melody and not even knowing how, and the mother came upon me as she was picking me up and didn't know what to make of it. All I remember is that it was literally like coming out from under the water after holding your breath for 5 years. It was like, you know, and suddenly the world as I knew it was like the moment in Dorothy and Wizard of Oz when everything's black and white and you have the tornado and she comes out of the broken down house and opens up to the land of Oz with this beautiful, you know, color, technicolor. For me, it was this moment of something that would reflect a presence of a innate knowing that life was about truth, beauty, and goodness. There was something in me that knew that life, like Rudolf Steiner says, is that life is essentially about truth, beauty, and goodness. And so where I went to was a place where that need for presence, that need for beauty, that need for connection to the things that make this life so miraculous is what was sort of baked in me from the earliest age. My commitment, my purpose is to awaken us out of the slumber that believes that our linear rational mind will solve all our problems, that invests in the linear rational mind as the only credible way to communicate, solve, engage, and strategize our way out of the mess we're in on the planet. I think one of the greatest challenges to humanity came from Descartes saying, "I think, therefore I am." And we went down the biggest delusion that has subjugated all the richness of the intelligence of our heart, the intelligence of our soul, the intelligence of our somatic intelligence, right? As these resources of vast frequencies of knowledge that are meant to synergize with our minds and be partners with our mind, but not be tyrannized by them and controlled by them. So my purpose is to develop any means necessary wherever the mind has hijacked and subjugated all of our other intelligences that make us human beings. My new website is going to be called Portals of Awe, The Art of Human Being. And it's going to be this onboarding every month, this onboarding place where an access to awe for humans, in spite of their defenses, gets hacked into and whether it's claiming our innocence and being the beginner, whether it's making peace with our mortality and understanding grief literacy, or it's awakening courage and stepping into the king that we are, or it's this sense of wonder of the birth and pregnancy. These are all portals of awe, right? And I believe that music, specifically designed music that is designed not to just have, as wonderful as solfege and 432 and all these technologies exist out there you can geek out on all the sound healing tools you want, not to disparage them at all. But I'm a real advocate for the kind of music that expands the range of human emotion, because music is the universal language of human emotion. And it's based on vibrations that become sculpted into what I call vibraceuticals that awaken our expansiveness of human emotion. And so if you notice, we're living in a culture where our emotions are being contracted into primary colors rather than the massive vastness of the emotional range. And that's what music can do. And that's what I believe music is here for. It has a destiny to fulfill, to save us from the addiction to the linear mind, which offers the addiction of certainty and control and linearity and speed, to something that insists on allowing the listening so we can become cymatic experiments of beauty and be agents of contribution that will make this world a place that remembers that we are a miracle, and this always a miracle, and we can't take it for granted, or we will to our peril. My purpose is also very much wrapped into the new nonprofit I created that I've been dreaming of for 25 years. And it's based on the concept that wisdom is not anymore wisdom. It's not a wisdom if it's merely awakening cognitive knowledge. Wisdom, in my view, and with all of the multimedia tools we have available to us, and with all the cinematic history we have in being at the edge of our seat, having our breath taken away through the power of film, wisdom is only wisdom if it's experienced with all parts of who we are, so that we end up being so touched and moved and inspired that it awakens and takes root and metabolizes into a way of being that shows up in ways that change people's lives. My presence with all of myself, body, mind, heart, and soul, will change lives, because people will go, wow, there's something about you. And they want to lean in and want to know what it is. Well, it's them seeing themselves in me, in their innate wholeness, in just the commitment I having to live my life with an open heart and a connected soul, if I can, as often as I can. So the Global Wisdom Foundation is a living library of awakening people to the revelation of spoken wisdom from the luminaries, known and unknown in our world, set to music or images in a way that in 7, 5, 6 minutes drop people into a state of remembrance, into that state of wordlessness, into that state of awe that gets wisdom in a way that changes their lives, whether it's about understanding death, understanding birth, feeling courage, being awakened. It's all about that. But the other component of it is offering a tour of musical celebration where we celebrate our multiplicity and our diversity. And I want to go around the world offering these concerts that demonstrates what I'm talking about who we are and what we're here for. Celebration, joy, connection, gratitude, wisdom, song, spoken word, creativity. These are the things that are the lifeblood of what makes us human. And I aim to be on a path that celebrates that wherever I can celebrate it. Funny you should ask. So why are so few people aware of their purpose, and why are so few people actually following their purpose, is at the center of the work that I am proud to develop, to offer now with my co-facilitator and co-creator in a workshop called Graceful Passages, the name of the product that I'm most known for, which is Graceful Passages is a book and CD set that is now out there on the streaming universe, co-created by Michael and Doris Stillwater, where we recorded world-class visionaries like Ram Dass, Thich Nhat Hanh, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and other major denominations represented. And we took their interview and asked them, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would you say to the one person you most love in this world? And we edited that hour and a half to 5 minutes of the pure nectar, and I scored it to an 80-piece orchestra at George Lucas's Skywalker Sound. And this work has touched, in the last 25 years, over 1 million people, and reframing death as a part of the cycle of life, and awakened to the recognition that we're going to die one day, but instead of having a fundamental fear-based reaction to that, it's about acceptance and gratitude and compassion and presence, right? So, long preface, why I believe people are not connected to their purpose, not aware of their purpose, or not following their purpose, is because we are living in a perfect storm, in a culture that is afraid of and doesn't mention illness, dying, death, grief, and loss. And the youth-obsessed culture that avoids the subject of our mortality and everything associated with that. As a result, it becomes this waxy buildup of unacknowledged and unaddressed grievances that becomes the most powerful stealer of people's brilliance and their awareness of their purpose. And because the culture supports you in denying, avoiding, and being afraid of loss, death, and the cycle of life, actually people don't realize that since the earliest time, ways of not processing grief are stealing the brilliance of people's purpose and their access to it, or even their belief in the dream that it's possible to fulfill their purpose. And what we do in our workshop is we actually created this 4-step process that is phenomenally effective at actually awakening and unraveling the grief that's tarnishing people's access to their purpose. And so I see it over and over again. It's when you help them unburden the unaddressed grief, what happens immediately is they start to become sensitive to who they are and what matters most and what makes their heart sing and what they most care about, whether it's the beautiful awakening of children, whether it's the pet supporting elders, whether it's about the environment. People start waking up to all that. That's who I am. Well, it was after their grief work that got awakened. So there are other things. I don't mean to say that that's the only thing, but I have to say, 95% of all violent acts and deeds come from unaddressed loss. And it's all the experts have acknowledged this. So when you think about this on the level of the family, individual ecology, to the family, to marriage, to community, to town, to city, to culture, to world, that it all could shift if grief literacy were an actual component to what the operating instructions for what it means to be a human being. I really do believe that it could solve world peace. It could create world peace on a one heart at a time basis. My biggest challenge used to be, I was so good at having my heart opened, and I lived my life with, with my heart on my sleeve in a culture that, young boys and men don't do that. So to be a young boy and a man that had an enormous access to creativity in its feminine side was a big challenge for me. And it caused a real resistance to the archetype of king and warrior that is intrinsic to every person, not just men, right? I just wanted to be the musician, the creator, the lover, the magician, the one that creates magic and enchantment everywhere. And so one of my biggest challenges in my 40s and 50s was really not allowing myself to step into the gladiator and the royalty, the king, right? And that's what, ironically, that's what I'm dealing with now. It's really stepping more into, well, what does that look like for me? And in a way that's true for every human, man and woman, is how do they be the gladiator they are of love and connection, right? That's what I'm working on now personally. But for me, in the project that I've been devoted to since my first career was scoring TV and film and commercials, and I was very successful doing it. The second career was when I really understood that I tapped into some way that music could awaken you to your heart and soul engagement in a way that was beyond anything you'd ever known. I didn't realize how hard it would be in this culture that was so addicted to the linear mind as the only way to get there, to the greed, the materialism, and the approach to try to sell, to all the things that our addictions are hungry for, right? And I gave up on my dream. I actually did. A few years ago, I went, this is not going to happen in my lifetime. So what am I going to do? Because I wasn't willing to go back to the commercial music world. I devoted myself to scoring projects that made a great deal of difference in people's lives, like the Thrive documentaries and others. But then these young millennials came into my life who are feeling like they saw that there was limit to the linear mind. And there were all these entrepreneurs that go to Tony Robbins events and everything that were actually really coming up against brick walls, looking at their strategies. And they said, Gary, you've got tools to open up the soul and the heart, and that's what everyone needs and wants more than anything. And I looked at him and I went, are you kidding me? Like they're ready for this, And so they've awakened my dream, and that's why I'm actually working on this project again, because I thought, okay, let's see, So, but the biggest challenge is I want to go into governmental agencies. I want to go to the United Nations. I want to go to corporations. I want to go to healthcare, which is, I've done a lot of work in healthcare, around the 5 minutes it takes in an hour and a half meeting at the beginning to create a level playing field where heart, body, mind, soul are recognized and infused and met and engaged in. And the need for scientists and academia and finance and government to be devoid of our humanity is going to perpetuate the mess that we're in. So the greatest challenge for me has been even the people in the movement getting addicted to the belief that the linear rational mind, the strategic solutions are going to solve the problem. And the truth is, spacious embodying of truth, beauty, goodness in a way that awakens the engagement of all of who we are is what will save the world. The advice I give, and by the way, I love working with younger people who have gifts and who are looking for a way to apply them, because the advice I give is always start with asking the question, what makes your heart sing? What really delights you? The other one is, what do you want, right? And often we've put a limit on of believing we can have what we want. So the idea of really tracking, and it's not easy to do that, by the way. I've noticed it's really hard to answer the question, what do you want? And what really makes your heart sing? But that's always a contributing set of questions that will help you get closer to what makes you tick, and what you're here for. One of the things, though, that I love is when you can be in a place like a child of embracing your inner child, your inner innocence, with things that a child would do, play, curiosity, beginner's mind, writing with your left hand to awaken your little child and see what does he want, right? The answer lies within something that is deeply embedded in every human being, which is the desire to be connected and to be loved and to be seen, and to awaken that part of you that remembers when you were the happiest that you ever were. That's always the rabbit hole to go down. And again, when we talk about the whole movement as realizing that joy is one of the most important practices, it's not only the most important results of aligning into the unit of experience, it's the most important strategy for coming into the unit experience. It's both the alpha and the omega, right? So there's many other things we can do to awaken our purpose. But I think that when you can actually have a real experience of touching another person's heart or filling a need and being of service in a way that made a difference in their lives, Dr. Keltner, the famous neuroscientist who wrote the book on awe and the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley, he said that we are anatomically, neurologically wired for good. We are, our lifespans are enhanced and increased when we actually awaken the part of us that wants to be of value to others and to our community, right? And to other beings. And that's the grand misconception, that we don't have the time to give to another person because we think we're too busy. It's such a funny thing, because the amount of gifts that come when you realize that you are the change agent for somebody opening their heart or their mind or their soul in a way they hadn't before. And that's when you remember that we are all imaginal cells in this great emergence of the butterfly of the universe that we're all interconnected to. And when we can actually directly see that what I'm saying or doing or being or following is helping another person believe that they can follow their dream, there's no other thing to have a healthy addiction towards than that. One of the ways that I have been most supported in my life is by seeing the impact my work has had on others. And it's why I've had to learn how to look at my wealth through the eyes of the soul rather than what's in my bank account. And when I look through the eyes of my soul at my wealth, I am not overstating the fact that I am probably one of the wealthiest men in the world. Because just the work of Graceful Passages that I co-created with Michael and Doris Stillwater that released in 2001, I go all around the world and people say, wait a minute, you're the one who did that? Do you have any idea how it changed everything in terms of how I approached the death of my wife or my father and my mother? And they start to cry and they thank me profusely. And it's everywhere in the world I get these comments. Just that alone, not to mention the movies I've done for Foster and Kimberly Campbell Thrive, not to mention the Care for the Journey work I've done in caregiver rejuvenation. And I am mentioning a lot of my work because I've looked wherever I can to actually deepen people's heart engagement. And it's had an enormous impact on millions of people. And if you don't think that helps me go to bed at night and feel like if today's a good day to die, so be it. I have had the great honor and privilege of being a portal of musical experiences that has touched millions of people in really meaningful ways. That is the greatest gift of my life, is seeing the impact it's had, And the other thing I want to say is the reason why I'm also really excited about this tour idea, I'm going around performing, is that thing that made me such an object of being bullied and made fun of as a child, where I was always wearing my heart on my sleeve. For some crazy reason, I just could never be any other way. So now I'm in the latter part of my life, and it turns out, as much as people love my music, it's my transparency that people are so excited about. It gives people a permission to just be themselves, because that's all it is about, is being yourself. And so I just give permission. I dare AI to make mistakes like I make, and to reveal them as the greatest gifts to my humanity, is to look at my mistakes as evidence of my humanity and my perfect imperfection. And how can that reflect back to you the beauty of being imperfectly you? And I think that's my biggest medicine. I really do. And I see what impact it has. Just even me walking around places. I love who I've become, and after a lifetime of having phenomenal inner critic problems and being so at the mercy of a very cruel voice that would never be enough in his eyes. I'm really happy to say that I'm at peace with self-love and self-acceptance in a way that even helps me be even more powerful as an impact on people's lives. And I wouldn't change that in a heartbeat. So what would the world look like if the majority of people in the world were living their purpose? The image that came up for me was, have you ever seen a huge bouquet of flowers? Each flower shining out, completely healthy, filled with water, life, and vibrancy, right? Well, just imagine if that whole bouquet was sinking with flowers that were dilapidated and they were dying and they were not thriving, right? That's what's happening, right, in our world. The world would actually awaken like that bouquet, where each person can become a part of the unitive, interconnected universe that the whole movement talks about. And it would actually be not difficult to cultivate what I'm working on my book called Resonance Intelligence. It wouldn't be difficult to sense with more than just my mind who you are, whether I have resonance with it, and whether I want to play with you and work together to collaborate in creating a world that we want, that's the world that we all want to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? So we get to be with other shiny beings who embody who they are and what they came here for. And if that isn't the most sexy, delicious, phenomenal, nourishing, fulfilling experience, what is? That's why this last gathering, this with the whole movement, has been so extraordinary. Because you're around other flowers that are completely vital, completely clear, and completely being fueled by the flow of their purpose. And that's what the world is going to be when we succeed in our goal of letting the whole movement have its way with us. Can we just take a moment and recognize that we are masters of understanding the evidence-based results of the explicit order, but that because we don't understand or can explain what's actually happening in the implicate order, and we can't see it with our eyes, we deny ourselves the opportunity to benefit from the way the implicate order works. And one of the ways it works is to have the courage to stop everything and let beauty and soul and heart and spaciousness have its way with us. It's in the spaces that I like to perfume with beauty at times when we in this world really need it, because we forget that the space is where the great creativity and the incubation of new possibility is. But most of us, even in the movement, deny ourselves the spaciousness to trust that in a perceived emptiness of pure experience, of just listening to beauty, is like what I call, another book title I'm working on called The Listening Fire. The primordial practice of being around a fire and listening to the sound of the wind and the crickets and the fire crackling. That fire is the music that I like to create to awaken our primordial connection to the implicate order and the magic that happens when we empower it with our presence. It's time to be trusting of that spaciousness as the incubator of our awakening in more ways than we, even in the movement, have been doing. And I feel like music has a role to help us anchor the trust in a sense of beauty that is easier to do when you know you're listening to something that reminds you that the beauty is the silent embrace of life itself.